I'm Aryeh and welcome to the Winsidr show, where it's all about the W. Today, we're talking middle-of-the-pack teams. If you like our show, please consider joining our Patreon community. For less than a cup of coffee a month, you can directly show support for the hard work we do covering the W. I'm here with Gabe, Ibrahim, and we're talking middle-of-the-pack teams. And just as a preface, before I even let Gabe say hi to the folks, we talked about this. We know there's 4 middle-of-the-pack teams: Lynx, Storm, Sky, and Mercury. We feel like we've talked about the Mercury a lot, and due to that, and because they're an underachieving team, as it were, we're going to kind of skip them in this episode and mostly or fully focus on the Lynx, the Storm, and the Sky. Is that okay with you, Gabe?
That'd be great to me. I mean, I thought we were going to talk about Taylor Swift's new album, but if we're not going to, this is fine. And yeah, I do. It's just the Mercury are just wholly different from this group that I don't think there's like a benefit to talking about them with this group. Like this is a group that is overachieving. There's a lot of good stories. They've done a lot of bad things, but I like that dichotomy. Like there's a difference between the Mercury and these 3 teams that we're going to talk about.
Oh yeah, and I think it's simple as saying like these 3 teams have overachieved and the Mercury have underachieved.
Sure, I think so. I mean, it's also like less established star power because of injuries to the Lynx and the Storm, and because they're in Chicago, they're still kind of emerging superstars. I mean, maybe next year it's different, but very different rosters too between Phoenix and these teams.
Yeah, very, very, very different. Well, let's start it off because I'm a host and I always give respect to Minnesota. We're going to start off with the Minnesota Lynx. Things that went well this season. I mean, let's just talk about this season. Coming into it, this team had a lot of question marks. Before my vote for GM of the year, Cheryl Reeve did her wheeling and dealing. This roster looked, I don't want to use hurtful terms, but pathetic. They really, really had a lot of question marks. And Reeve put her cap on, rolled up her sleeves, got to work. Odyssey Sims has blown up for this team. Yes, her shooting percentage isn't the greatest. Yes, we would all love to see her pass a few of those shots a little bit more. But she can go off any night for 20 to 30. And she's shown that throughout the season. And that's something that the Lynx need. And it's been extremely beneficial for their team. I'll let you, Gabe, talk about Fee for a little bit.
I mean, what more is there to say about Fee that has not already been said? To me, I know there is this debate about her and Enrique for the Rookie of the Year. I'm not like living under a rock or anything, but to me, it's been wrapped up for a while that Fee she's gonna win this Rookie of the Year because she just does everything for the team, And I think when she came in, it was kind of, I didn't really know. I don't really watch a lot of college basketball generally, so I'm not really huge on like the prospect thing. But obviously you heard about her and it was like, okay, this is a Swiss Army knife. You're going to bring her in and she's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. But just so far, she's been a master of everything. I mean, she can score. She's been one of the leading engines to this offense. She's a really good passer, excellent rebounder, and as well as being, more or less a lockdown defender. I think she still has some growing to do on that side of the ball, but she will be a lockdown defender. I have no doubt about her potential on that side. And it's just to see her come in year one and just make this huge difference. I mean, she's stepping in, more or less from Maya Moore and doing a pretty good job of it. So I think Fee deserves a ton of credit and a ton of praise. And I think she definitely deserves that Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's a year-round or it's a year-long award. Right. If you're talking about from the All-Star break to today, then I think it's a real debate. And I know the stats, depending on what stats you favor and this, and that. For me, it's just as simple as the way you put it. Like, Fee has been an all-around top player all season long from day 1 to day 34, whatever it is. she has just looked that good and hasn't had the struggles. Yeah, I think she had like one game where I remember being like, all right, she had a rookie game. Let's see how she rebounds from it. And kind of like her rebounding in games, she hit it back well. Something else that I don't think, I mean, it got a little bit of attention and it's kind of simmered down a little bit. Adding Lexi Brown. The Lynx had a plethora of issues coming into this season. One of the biggest issues was how are they going to create points off the bench? And Lexi has done that and has done it superbly. And then, when Simone came back and they moved D-Rob to the bench, D-Rob did a great job of that. That has always been an element that has been so important for this Lynx team. They're going to play defense. That they're going to put up shots, not a lot of threes. I wish they'd shoot more threes. But someone like Lexi or someone who can get off the bench, hit some deep balls is so important to this team to really space it out. And it makes the opposing team have to adjust their game plan to be reactive, or not reactive, but proactive to what's going to come versus last year. The whole season, it was pretty easy to say like, oh, okay, they don't have Renee off the bench anymore. Okay, they don't really have anybody coming off the bench that can really scare us, push the ball, and hurt us. Like, the second lineup would come in and kind of just be like, all right, we can mosey around. It's not a big deal. Yeah. And you can't do that anymore with the players on this bench. Hot take, not hot take. You add Maya Moore back to this roster and Rebecca Brunson next season, even with Simone in her last year, and I think you're looking at one of the most talented rosters in the league. I'm not going to say the most talented, but like definitely up there.
Well, and definitely the team. I think it's we're going to talk about how these teams stack up in the playoffs, but definitely the team with Maya Moore on this team to face them in the playoffs. I don't care what seed they have during the year. I don't care if Simone wants to sit out the whole year, she can, and then just come in the end of the year. But if Maya and Rebecca come back next year fully healthy and have the mindset they've always had, this team is back to being top 3-4 team in the league, definitely in the mix for the double bye next year.
Yeah, and that is so important.
Right.
But it wasn't all great for the Lynx. They had some issues this season. Let's talk about some things that went poor. I'll let you start, and then I'm going to do my hot take that's going to get me some flack from the Lynx fans.
Okay. Well, so mine is not a hot take. It is a cold take. It's something we've talked about all year, and it's just how much they turn the ball over. They average 16.3 turnovers a game. No one's above 15. Like the Mystics, who are legendarily great taking care of the ball on offense, they average 11.6 turnovers a game. It is maddening to watch the Lynx just give the ball away. And it turns out, when you watch these games and you're in the fourth quarter and you're thinking, okay, the Lynx are down by 4, they're down by 6, and they have such great players that they can stay in the game, but they've already given away, 10 points off turnovers. It's infuriating, the level of carelessness with the basketball, because a lot of it you're going to play good defenses, are going to force you into turnovers. That's understandable. And that's happened a few times. But other times, they're just carelessly throwing the ball away, and then it turns into like a quicksand effect where, you get snatched one time, and then, you're trying to move faster, and then you throw a bad pass next time, and then the next time down, you're frustrated, and you're going to throw a lazy pass, and that one gets picked off. And I just think that has been their Achilles heel all year. It's going to be, I'm predicting out to the future, it's going to be what gets them knocked out in the playoffs. There's going to be a late game situation, and they're going to turn the ball over because that's what they've done all year. And it's weird because this is such a well-coached team, and you can see that on the defense end. And it's just offensively, they have people who, like we said, Fee is a rookie still. Regardless of how good of a rookie she is, she's still a rookie, and she's going to turn the ball over a lot. Simone's been turning the ball over a lot. And Odyssey, that's just kind of baked into her game that she's going to turn the ball over a lot. So it just – it's frustrating to see that because this is a good team and you can see them going further, but that's what's really held them back, in my opinion, this year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's been ridiculously frustrating. One of the things that kind of leads to what I was going to say, which is Sylvia Fowles. Now, the utmost respect for her.
The utmost respect for her.
What?
The utmost respect for her. She's a Miami native, so I will say nothing bad about her. I can't believe we're going down this road. And if Rachel was here, she'd be furious.
Yeah, and I know the second this podcast goes live, I'm going to get a text from her. But it needs to be brought up. And look, I'm just stating facts and my opinion, and disagree with me, agree with me, whatever it is. At the end of the day, I'm not even completely putting this on Sil. I think a lot of it has to do with the inconsistency of how they are refereeing her and refereeing different bigs in this league. I mean, if you look at her stat line, her stats are pretty similar throughout her career. Even if you look at last year or 2 years ago, I mean, all right, yeah, 2017, she had a ridiculously good season. Let's not forget that. But there has been that drop.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the biggest issue, in all honesty, has been a two-pronged attack of these players have not been playing with her long enough, besides Simone. When Simone got back in there, we saw a much more crisp pass going to Sil. But it really awakens you to not only how good the Minnesota Lynx were, but how good the team was at the chemistry of knowing I need to feed the ball to Sil on her this shoulder, this many inches off from her hand, and I know she has the reach and this, and that. That has been a given. And this year, even last year, it was much more of a given. But this year, we have, I mean, her points per game are down big time. Her points per game the last 2 years were 18 and 17. She's at 13. All right. Rebounds per game. She's down 3 rebounds a game. All these are starting to add up. And to me, point at one thing, which is the lack of flow that this team really has. And I don't mean that in like, it can't get there, blah, blah, blah. Because you definitely see sparks of it, but you haven't seen the consistency of this is where, like, we know how to get the ball to Sil. Right. We've seen some good games from her that have kind of fluffed some of these stats. But for the most part, I just haven't seen the ability to get Sil in the position that makes her best.
Right. And I think on the offensive end, you do point out a big thing is those entry passes just aren't as crisp. And it goes back to the turnover things. They get a lot of turnovers off those entry passes. And, part of that is obviously on the guard or whoever's making that pass from the top of the key into Sil. And that's also on Sil having to come back out and get the ball. And, you can also kind of see, though, like, it is age. This is kind of when you get older, obviously you're going to get slower. And I think we're seeing that. And she's a little bit less active offensively, and defensively. The numbers show that she's a little less active. This is the third lowest blocks per game she's ever had in the season, tied for lowest steals. And she's just not the same sort of active presence out there. But however, I think one thing that you did touch on needs to be elaborated on is that, this is the worst year the second worst year she's ever had in terms of field goal attempts per game since her rookie year. And that, to me, is so huge in their officiating her this year. That's what's really been kind of – we could see the age-related decline, right? But the sort of bigger decline that you're talking about, I think why you're bringing her up here in the negative, is in large part due to the way they're officiating her and the fact that she's not getting enough calls, the fact that she's not getting to the line as a player of her stature really should, and the type of player she is as well. That person should be getting to the line a lot more, and I think it also affects those inlet passes those into the post passes that she's getting mauled by the defender, so she can't get into good position, and then the clock starts raining down, and then you have all these people who kind of turn the ball over a lot coming into her. So I think officiating is playing a really big role in that sort of extra step we see past her age-related decline that we would expect.
Oh, yeah, and let's talk about free throws for a moment here. There's only 3 comparable seasons you're talking about free throw attempts for Sylvia Fowles. And in comparison to this year, first year, 2018, all right, she played 17 games. So that's half a season. Next time that's comparable, 2014. She plays 20 games. That's essentially half a season. And then 2015, she's playing 18 games. That's essentially half a season. So we're literally seeing her get the calls equivalent to a half of a season. And that, when you look at that, that's just mind-blowing to me.
No, it's infuriating. I'm sure it's infuriating for Sylvia. I mean, she doesn't seem to be someone who gets really mad about a lot of stuff, unlike Liz and Brittany, who are going to tell you about it. but she's definitely getting hit down there a lot, and I think it's playing a huge role in that sort of decline that we're seeing from her. So hopefully refereeing is better next year, and she will.
Or hopefully she takes like some boxing classes or something.
I mean, she's apparently allowed to do whatever she wants. So if she would like to just beat down on people, I am so here for it, Sil. I would love to see it. But until then, because I do think like on offense, they weirdly call like more of those fouls, other than on Liz, who puts her elbow out on every single layup. But she does have to figure out a way to, this season at least, figure out a way to get into better positioning and be more active despite getting mauled.
Yeah, and you got to find a way. As crappy, as shitty, whatever it is, you have to find a way, because otherwise we're just making up excuses and we're just playing the same note for a long time. Let's talk about the Seattle Storm.
All right.
What went well for them? I mean, the obvious is they have handled the adversity amazingly well. Jewel Lloyd has not even had one of her most amazing seasons, and yet this team is still in position to have a deep playoff run if they play their cards right. Natasha Howard has just exploded. Mercedes Russell, my vote for most improved player of the year, has, to some degree, obviously things have shifted around, but essentially she's filling the shoes of Brianna Stewart, the defending MVP of like everything in 2018. So for me, this team has already made a huge accomplishment. Now they will be the first to jump on me and say, hey, we're going for a repeat and we're the champs until someone beats us. What have you seen positive for the long term or positive for the short term from this team this year?
I think for both long-term, short-term, their playoff goals and going forward, I think the biggest thing this year was really solidifying that defensive mentality. I think this year they proved that they're one of those teams, right? They're one of those teams with the Lynx. You put the Aces this year have also been really good defensively, but they're creating a defensive identity that's going to go on for a long time. And you see this across sports. Every major dynasty, every team that has staying power in the sport is good on defense. And so for me, the biggest thing was watching Seattle become one of those teams that has that defensive mentality and that defensive intensity every single game. So long term, I think their outlook's really good because of this year doing that and getting a lot of people up to the level of championship defense. Their defensive rating is tied for third, which is something we should have brought up with the Lynx, because the Lynx are also really good defensively. They've established that for years, though. And I think Seattle this year really, really put it down and said, we are going to be great defensively. They turn teams over so much, and like it's in a way that's different from the Lynx, who also turn teams over a bunch, that they're kind of just like gunning for it. They're like one of those defenses that is just going for all the steals. They know that they can kind of come back and
they're jumping passes left and right because they have the confidence that if they miss it, somebody's there to back them up.
Right. Exactly. And I think, you see Jordan Canada's like picking people up from, 3/4 court just in like the second quarter to throw them off. And, they're obviously a great coach team. It's really encouraging to see them, develop that we are defense. Our defense is going to take us wherever we need to go any year. Whoever's here, we're going to be good on defense. So to me, that was the biggest thing for them this year.
Yeah, I completely agree. We got the same list there. Things that went poorly for this team, though, scoring. This team has just struggled sometimes, which is mind-blowing to say when you talk about who's on this roster. Natasha Howard, Sammy Whitcomb, Alicia Clark can score, Kato Mosquito-Lewis can score. All these people on this roster have the ability. Even Courtney Paris can score. Everybody can score. But yet they have truly struggled to find consistency in scoring the basket.
And yeah, it's weird. It is weird what you're saying. I mean, we can also, again, point to them because they are just one spot above the Lynx in terms of turnovers per game. They have 15.9 turnovers per game this year. So, and we could just say, hey, look, that's another indicator as to what is holding your offense back. But they also they're not a great shooting team. And, I think it's not that they can't score because, like you said, all of those players are good scorers. It's that you don't have the one person to initiate and run through the offense. Natasha Howard has been fantastic all year, but she has a huge defensive burden too. And to put it all on her offensively is going to take away from her defense, and that's just something that the Storm can't handle. And plus, I don't think she's not really her best when she's just like getting the ball in the post up and initiating the offense. Jewel is that type of player to initiate an offense, but she had that injury, the ankle injury earlier in the year, and it kind of just like took a lot of wind out of the sails. And I think she's personally, I think she's like still struggling with that ankle injury, and it's kind of been what's been changed in the last month as to why they're playing worse offensively. So they just don't have the person to initiate the offense. It'd be really great if they had, like, I don't know, Sue Bird. That'd be fantastic. Or Brianna Stewart.
Who's that?
Right. So if they had either of those two players who are on the freaking roster, then it would be much different. But, I think it still is disappointing in that they just sometimes, like, they can't get a bucket. And you're just sitting there and you're thinking through your head, you're like, how is this team so just like flummoxed offensively? They just can't score at all, no matter who they run through, no matter who they play, no matter how many open shots they have in that little span. You're saying they just can't score, and so that's my most disappointing thing for them this year.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been mind blowing, but I gotta throw this out there, and I want your take, and then I'll tell you mine. Sue Bird, Brianna Stewart, they don't get injured. How do you think the battle between Seattle and Washington is going this year?
Man, it would have been because we went to the game. We were at the game the other night when they played Seattle and Washington. That was still like a huge game feel, and it's because Seattle is just like not giving up. They are refusing to give in this year, which is really encouraging to see. But I gotta say, I would still probably favor the Storm. I don't know, man, because the Mystics are way better than they were last year, and they have Emma. But the Storm have Jordan Canada, who's really, really improved this year. That's another thing that's really gone well for them is Jordan Canada emerging as sort of a backup to Sue Bird next year and the heir apparent to Sue Bird going forward. And she's really had that breakout year. And I think also Alicia Clark has been great this year, and both those players got much better. So yeah, I'm if I had to pick between a Seattle team with Stewie and Bird healthy versus this Mystics team fully healthy, I think I gotta go Storm, right?
Yeah, no, I thought I was gonna have the hot take saying Storm would beat them, and it wouldn't be close. And I'll say this. I'll put it this way: you take the Storm team from last year against the Mystics team this year. Hell, this is the hottest take you're gonna hear of the day. They still sweep.
Oh my god, I'm rolling my eyes. This is a non-visual medium, but I'm rolling my eyes. Aryeh has had this thing with the Mystics, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. But they're good, man.
No, and I'm coming around to them. The past few games, I've really come around to them. I just think, and I say this, and I don't mean this as a knock to the Mystics. I truly don't. I just feel that they happen to be in a situation that, there's been all these injuries across the league. They have, Chrissy Tolliver has gotten hurt. Don't talk to me about that. For me, the Mystics have been amazing, but it's also about timing. And yes, we always know like timing's very important. This player is growing, whatever. Timing's important. We get that. In any relationship, timing's important. As far as a championship relationship, I just think all the cards have kind of lined up for the Mystics that if they can stay healthy, one of the only teams that have stayed healthy all year, this is their ship to lose. And I personally just believe if there wasn't all these injuries, you wouldn't be in the same situation.
Fine. I accept. I disagree. But back to the Storm. To the Storm, who we're actually talking about here. I do agree, though, that this team with Stewie, with Bird, healthy, ready to go, been playing together for the entire season. Yeah, I still think that is the best team in the league, if that's what we're getting at. And I think they are definitely the best team in the league with those two.
We've seen the depth of this roster, and it's scary.
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is, and especially with Canada, because I didn't really think like coming into the year, Jordan Canada's going to step in for Sue Bird and it's going to be fine. but like Jordan Canna has kind of stepped in for Sue Bird, and it's kind of been fine. So I think they've really developed some depth, and the next year they're just going to be terrifying, assuming everyone's back.
Yeah, I mean, and look, my assumption from what I've heard, it doesn't sound like Sue's coming back. It sounds like, you know what, let's close up shop for the year.
Yeah.
Granted, you know, we can bring her on and have her, you know, be on the sidelines and whatnot and be in practice. I know she's doing her rehab, and I think it was Sue or somebody else said the famous line of like, when like rehabbing's worse, or like being injured's worse because you're working more than during the season, because every day is, you know, rehab this, rehab that, exercise this, am I back, blah blah blah. To have her back, I mean, I don't want to look forward too much, because this Seattle Storm team is a team that like I just can't bet against, and they have scorned me many times and pick them with Rachel, where I'm like, yeah, but like you can't bet against the Storm, because like any day they'll just like go off for 95 points and just destroy somebody with like 15 like steals or something like that. I just don't want to bet against this team. This team moves fast. They're super athletic. They're a really scary team that like we're going to get into like some predictions later. So we're not going to crush that too much. You ready to move on to the Sky?
One thing on the Storm,
Yeah.
What you just said is a huge win for them this year, considering all they've gone through. What we just said, that they are a scary team, that we don't want to play the Storm, that they have now created that identity going forward. That is huge for them. That is huge for the Storm, and you know that they deserve a lot of plaudits and credit for that. We can talk about what went wrong with them, but honestly, who cares? We know what went wrong with them. They had injuries. Done.
Yeah, no, exactly. Look, the shooting of like their ability to score has been an issue, and injuries. Like other than that, like they have exceeded every expectation. Like we can't be upset at them.
Right.
We just can't. All right, let's move on to the Chicago Sky. Bring it back to the Midwest. This team, I mean, look, I'll be real. I saw an interview with the owner of the Chicago Sky and Michael Alter. He said something. It was either right before they fired Amber Stocks or right after they hired Wade, or right in the in-between. So one of those three, I guess. But he said something that at the time I was like, dude, you're crazy. Do you know what's going on right now in the league? But what he said was essentially, this team should be in the playoffs. And next year, he's like, and if not this year, but then the following year, we should be competing for a championship.
Well, he was correct.
Yeah, and I stood there at the time and I said, okay, yeah, I'm a fan of James Wade. I personally thought they got rid of Amber Stocks too early, but I'm a fan of James Wade, and I think to a certain degree he's kind of picked up where Amber left off, and that was definitely a good thing for him, because Amber started to. I'm not going to talk about culture with Amber, but I will talk about the makeup of the roster and kind of this forward-thinking team as far as the roster and analytics and all of that jazz. And James was able to come into, a building that was already the groundwork was laid, versus Amber came in and literally had to gut the whole ground and lay the concrete. Coming into this, James Wade hit the ground running. He was focused. He was determined. He spoke his mind. Quigley and Vandersloot are amazing. We are going to showcase them more and get them more eyes. Diamond is a freak of nature and is too good for anybody not to be double teaming her all the time. And then he made a ridiculously well-planned and smart move of getting Jantel Lavender. Get her, add some more paint presence. And we're going to talk about paint presence. But talk to me just about the athleticism and the fast-paced Chicago Sky.
Well, I think what you were saying about, that sort of laying the groundwork. And then I like to call them, there's the point A to point B coaches, which is probably what the Sky saw Coach Stocks as. Was a point A to point B, and now this point B to point C is Wade's time to take them from a team that is ready to get into the playoffs to a team that's ready to win a championship. And I think they have that on the way, and that's exactly what you were saying, that athleticism, that pace. They play with the second best pace in the league behind Washington, and that's a theme for them. They are the second best offensive team in the league behind Washington. But for the Sky, they have, I said before the season that them drafting Samuelson in the draft, I think, what pick was she? She was
like
yeah, like she it was higher than what she was projected, and it was like, why are they doing this? They need someone who can play defense, and that just kind of signals to me like, okay, they are going to run as fast as they can and try and make as many buckets as they can, and that's how they're going to play defense. And it worked out. They just run teams off the court. You're so tired from playing them that they really, they can get some easy buckets in transition. They can pull up some threes in transition. They have Courtney Vandersloot, who is a whiz.
Sorry, correction. I was way off. Chicago had the number 4 pick.
So. Okay. They had the number 4 pick? Yeah, they did. Of course they did.
I'm going to go into this when you're done. Don't
worry. But so they really embraced that athleticism and just let it go. I think Wade was a perfect guy for that. He was the guy who's just we're going to instill chemistry in this group. And then adding Jantel was incredible because she can really run the floor with them. Steph Dolson has done a really good job running the floor, which is I didn't think she would be that great in that system, but she's proven me wrong completely that she can really get down the floor. I think there's some other fit questions with her, but really great in transition. And they really just, love to play with each other. And I guess that makes sense because, Courtney and Allie, they spend all their time together off the court anyways. They built that chemistry and then it kind of has like radiated out to where, Diamond loves to hang out with the team. They all seem to love each other. There's so many posts on social media of them just like getting along. And that's huge. That's what takes you from being a team that can make the playoffs to a team that will make the playoffs. And to me, they've really done this through that sort of chemistry route because they did have all the pieces like you were saying. And they just kind of let it go. They didn't overthink this. They didn't try to instill some sort of grand plan. No, the plan was run, hit threes, play together. And those 3 goals were all accomplished this year.
Yeah, but this is the thing that I just can't get over. I love everything they've done. Honestly, things that went poorly this year, I think we have to talk about Katie Lou in that, and obviously the Lavender injury. Lavender's on both ends of it. Defense has been an issue. Paint presence, fine, cool. Katie Lou gets drafted number 4, and I remember standing there, everyone's all hyped, and I'm sitting there texting, the WNBA minds that I text with, and I'm like, what just happened?
Right.
Why? And more so because it's like they basically said like, oh, we have some of the best wings in the league. Oh, cool. We're going to push more on that. Oh, we have a bunch of this position already on lock. Well, let's get another like a top 4 draft pick to play that position who's going to have to like seriously fight for minutes. That's a smart move. I mean, let's just look at it. They could have had Nafisa, Kalani Brown, Elena Smith, Aryeh. They could have had Aryeh. Think about Aryeh coming off the bench.
I don't actually. I think Aryeh doesn't fit in that system. I mean, you don't draft for system. That's a thing. Most people will tell you don't draft for system. But Aryeh doesn't really fit that mold to me. She's more of like I'm going to ISO at top of the key for like 5 seconds and then hit a shot in your face, which is great. But that's not the DNA of this team. So I think you're right. Look, they should have taken Nafisa Collier, hindsight being 2020. Well, hindsight being 2020, everyone should have taken Nafisa Collier. She should have been the number 1 pick in this draft. She's an all-star this year. But I think the pick of Katie Lou was just we're committing to that identity. So I do agree, obviously, the pick didn't work out as well yet. It still probably will, I think, with Katie Lou. I mean, she has to add a little bit more muscle, get better on defense, and then she can really play in the system as the 4. But she didn't work out, but it was a signal to me that they are going with this identity, and that's the exact identity they need to win a championship with this group.
Hey, I'm with you on that. I'm definitely with you on that. I just like I love going back and we always talk about like, oh, redo this draft. I will say, like, at the end of the day, yeah, you got to give them like 3 to 5 seasons before we even start talking about bust or anything like that. So let's give them some time. We're not rushing to that.
Right. I do want to point out though, I just like the Lynx had an amazing draft. They got Jessica Shepard in the second round at 16. 4th pick in the second round, they're getting someone who was going to contribute to their team until she got hurt. So that just wanted to give another point to the Lynx retroactively.
Look, they did some amazing stuff, and this isn't even like my bias coming out. This is just me being like, I thought this was going to be a crap, like, all right, yo, let's let's focus on
A gap
2020. Yeah, a gap year. Take the year off. They really did their homework. They did an amazing job, and they really impressed some teams. I mean, look, we can talk about injuries affecting Seattle. We can talk about injuries affecting this team and this team. Minnesota has to be up there. Obviously, also Phoenix Mercury needs to be up there. That they have just hit a crap storm of of disciplinary actions that causes players not to be playing, or injuries that causes players not to be playing, or a combination of both if you're Diana Taurasi. But Minnesota just really they shocked me. I mean, like, I'd say the two most shocking teams this season have to be the Lynx and the Storm. Do you agree?
Yes, I would agree. Yeah, no, I think it's fairly obvious because before the season we were talking about the Storm not making the playoffs and the Lynx taking that gap year like we just said. So yeah, they are really overachieving, but it's not so much shocking. Like, looking back on it, I think we're just too reactionary to those that news and that injury, and so fresh. It's not that shocking though, because these teams are programs. This isn't a year for the Lynx. This is a dynasty. That we're going to start measuring the Lynx's success in terms of decades, not years. So to me, the Lynx it makes total sense looking back. And same with the Storm now that we kind of see, like, this is more than just that 1 year's team. This is a franchise. This is something that's going to be going forward. So yeah, I'd say those two are the most surprising. The Sky also is surprised a lot of people because I think a lot of people said, hey, that defense is going to be terrible again. And, they have not been terrible. Hang the banners. They have not been terrible. They're the 9th best defense in the league by defensive rating, which is good enough. It works.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, like, it's a wheel and it rolls, then roll that wheel.
Oh, it worked. It worked. But yes, so of these three teams, the most shocking, considering our preseason expectations, their results so far is the Storm. I think the Storm are really the ones that came out and shocked us. Because the Lynx, we should have known that Cheryl Reeve is not going to have a bad team. Yeah.
And also, I think, I think with the Storm, many people, you see those two injuries and you just go, okay, so, any way they make the playoffs? Or is this going to be one of those things, kind of what happened to Phoenix a few years back when they got these injuries or some injuries, some suspensions, whatever it was, and they're able to get a top pick to get Brittany Griner and various other people who are top talent. So I was sitting there going, are we about to have deja vu? Is Seattle about to go from winning a championship, have some injuries, and then drop to a not playoff team, get a really good top draft pick, and then next year's come out and rip it? But they basically, and I got to give props to the team. Obviously, no competitor is going to sit there and go, yeah, I'm going to toss this season. It's a gap year or whatever. But they really took that to heart and said, no. We are the champions and we're running this back.
And they really played like that too. That was the fun part, is that they played like a team who is we are not settling for anything. We're getting every single win we can, and we're going to try to run it back. So it is super impressive. And just developing that culture was a little surprising to me. And again, that's going to be something going forward that we're probably going to be saying about this team year in, year out, that they are just not going to give up. They don't care.
I like it. Let's talk about the current standings.
Okay.
We can talk about playoff picture, all that jazz. I think, Washington and Connecticut have kind of, you got the one team that has the best road record and then the one team that has the best home record. And things can still move around. DC's basically essentially locked down that home spot in my mind, at least the top 2 seed in my mind. Connecticut's kind of iffy. But with Vegas dropping a bunch recently, I don't know how it's going to happen. But just based off the current standings, we would have Minnesota versus Seattle and Chicago versus Phoenix in our first one-and-done round. And those are 2 great games and tough games, but we're going to put ourselves on the spotlight, and we're going to have to say, all right, if that's what happens today, who are you picking? Let's start with Chicago and Phoenix.
That's the one I least wanted to answer. Give me a percentage of how good Diana Taurasi is feeling in that game.
I'll say it's Diana. So she's feeling 50 to 60, but it's Diana. So she feels like 60 to 80.
Right. She has the confidence of someone who.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, she always has the confidence. Oh man. I think I'm gonna go. All right, if I have to pick right now, I'm going Sky because the Sky are the better team. They are the team that, obviously, through the standings, they are the better team. But also, eye test and you watch teams play against each other. I think BG's not a great matchup here. She's not, she's not going to be able to run with this team defensively. I think Steph Dolson is she's actually like a decent matchup for BG. She has a lot of size. She has a lot of she can bully down there. She can play a little bit of bully ball with BG. She's not going to back down. I really wish they had Lavender in that matchup, but yeah, okay. I'm solidifying this. The Sky would win that game because I don't think Phoenix can stay with them defensively. Of course, that changes, though, if DT is healthy. So, asterisks on my pick, but I'll pick the Sky.
Essence Carson's health is also a big question mark that has not gotten enough attention. Her role on this Mercury team.
It's huge. No, it's huge. And that was something I was talking about in the power rankings last week, that their bench has just kind of been non-existent. And Essence has been hurt, obviously. But their bench has kind of just not been good. They just haven't produced, and they should, and they need that. They can't put the pressure on you for 40 minutes like we were talking that the Lynx can do and the Mystics can do. They can put pressure on you for 40 straight minutes, and the Mercury cannot. So how are you? It matters less in a one-game sort of deal, and DT is the best in the world at these do-or-die situations, but if she's at the health she is now, I think you got to go with the Sky.
Honestly, call me an old head, call me whatever. I have learned my lesson. I've lost too much money. I never put my money against the Mercury in a one or done as long as Griner and DT are still wearing that orange and purple. So I got to go Mercury. I completely agree with everything you said. It's not even like I disagree with you. It's purely I do not have confidence. For me, it boils down to a few things when you get to the playoffs. How much winning history do the vets have in the playoffs? And then the youngsters, like the year one, the year twoers, the sophomores and the freshmen, what was their prestige as far as winning in college? And because that's the only way I can think about it. And honestly, looking at the Sky team, I worry when it comes to the playoffs if this team has that ability. Yes, a portion of this team went with Delhi and Sil to the finals and have that experience of winning. I'm not ignoring that. I'm not saying they've never won in the playoffs. It's just the consistency of Chicago in the playoffs has not been there for me to say, yeah, I really like what they're doing. So I begrudgingly and probably will lose all my money again because the Phoenix just doesn't like when I bet on them. As I bet them to win the championship this year and Bonner to be MVP. But look where that's going. All right, whatever. Let's move on. Seattle versus Minnesota.
Yes.
I'll give my take with an asterisk of I don't think this is a good matchup for Minnesota. I think just like we talked about, and this is something that I wanted to preface this whole discussion with, which is one of these, like, I agree with you. Sky is the better team, but it's so much about matchups. And yes, I even think the Sky have the better matchups, but like these playoffs more than any other year, it's not going to be about regular season record. It's not going to be about who's the better team. It's going to be about the matchups because these teams are so tight in the playoff race. We're talking about just today. I mean, there's 2-3 games left in the season. You could see a huge shift of this where none of these teams could possibly play each other. That's still a possibility. But I do want to say that, like, I just don't see the Lynx Storm matchup being a good one. And I'll point to one thing specifically that we spoke about, which was Minnesota being kind of lackluster on their passes and Seattle being given that green light of, green light works, and I was going to say yellow light, getting that green light to jump all the passes and have that confidence. I mean, it's a recipe for 20 to 25 turnovers for Minnesota.
Oh, this is going to be a complete rock fight, and I'm so excited for it. It's just going to be turnover. It's going to be a whole like Benny Hill thing probably in the middle of it. So it's going to be a complete and utter ineptitude on offense, I think. But that to me is always a fun game. I love any sporting event that is just defensive focus is a lot of fun. So yeah, like you're saying, I think the Storm are going to have a field day with those really bad inbound passes and the laziness that you sometimes see in the Lynx offense. I think the Lynx are going to have a field day picking off the Storm because they also like to throw lazy passes. They also kind of lose focus offensively. So if I had to pick who's going to win this low-scoring game in which there's probably going to need to be a last shot taken, who has that person? And I will believe in Simone Augustus. She has not played well this year. Simone has not been good this year. She's been obviously injured for most of it, but even when she's been back.
She had one good game.
And she's getting back. But who do I trust the most in that final possession? Is it Jewel Lloyd with this ankle thing happening, or is it Simone Augustus with, kind of getting back into the rhythm where she is healthy? She's just getting back into the rhythm of playing. I'd probably go with Simone Augustus. And because of that, I will go with the Lynx. And, oh, man, I really hate betting. I'm so with you because I really, really, now saying it out loud, I hate betting against the Storm and the Mercury. But I'm going to do it. I'm going Sky and Lynx moving on to the next round.
Hot take, Gabe. And out of those four teams, talk to me real quick before we sign off for the day. Out of those four teams, it can be the Mercury or Seattle, even though you picked them to lose. Which of these four teams do you think has the best chance to get out of the do or die games?
To get out of the do or die? Let's see. I would say probably the Sky again, just based on talent. I agree with you that playoff experience is really, really important, but the teams you're going to play in the next round, I think the Sky just kind of match up a little bit better because those teams can score a little bit better. So it's not going to be so much of a rock fight for Minnesota or Seattle to win. I just don't believe in Phoenix this year, unfortunately. They're going to prove me wrong, like you said. But the Sky have that sort of high-end potential that they can just one night they can say we're going to score 100, we're going to score 105 points, we're going to score 110 points, and then what do? I just don't see how a team could match their highest output. So I would say out of these teams, the team most likely to get to the semifinal is the Sky.
I hear that. I'm torn between Seattle and the Mercury, to be honest. Looking at both those teams, for me, Sky, I'm just like, yeah, I could see them do that for one game. I don't have the confidence for them to do that for two. Minnesota, honestly, the same thing, where I could see them winning one. I don't have high confidence in them winning two. And then, look, I'm not going to say that Phoenix and Seattle have so much of my confidence. What I will say is thinking this through, man, this is tough. But I'm going to go with the Storm. They just have a swagger this year that no matter what comes to them, they are ready to take it on head first. And I don't know why, but I just have confidence in that team. I have no idea why. It does not make sense. I totally get it.
Hot take Aryeh.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Well, real quick, before we log off, I know most of our listeners are probably tuned off after the second minute, but if you're still listening, we just want to give the W a little bit of crap. Stop putting a ton of games for like the last games of the season or the first playoff games or whatever it is. Stop coinciding WNBA big day games with the first games of the NFL season. That's just not smart. No matter what you say to me, you're not going to convince me that that is a smart business move. So I'm throwing some shade, get out in the sun, move those games to Monday, flex them. I don't even know what the term is. Just move them.
Or put them on different days. Literally, just don't have them all at the same time and the same days. We have open days in the schedule. How is that possible? We have like 8 games at once. There's not that many teams in the league.
It's really frustrating as somebody who covers the national beat to be at the DC games, and then by the time I get home, I've already missed 2 or 3 of the games. It's just really frustrating.
Rant's over.
Yeah, whatever. All right, well, we believe the players of the W and its community deserve the same in-depth analysis and respect that men's sports receive on a daily basis. Please consider joining our Patreon community to help support us and the hard work that we do. This has been the Winsidr Show.